Hi, I am very tired today. I haven't made a video all week, so I figured I'd do something today. I'm home alone right now, so I have a little bit of quiet, private time to do something. Last night my brother and I went to go see the new Spider-Man movie, and because I didn't really feel like seeing it on a weekend day this time, I decided that we would go see it at night. And we don't usually do that anymore because we're both in our mid 30s. And it's a lot easier to go see a movie at night when you're in your, let's say, teens and young adulthood, your 20s, than it is when you're in your mid 30s. And so the showtime was at 9:30. We went to a Regal theater. And I have to say, I think I understand now more why people are not going to the movies more. And it's because the experience is not quite as enjoyable as it used to be when we were younger and we would go to a theater like that. My brother and I tend to go more to the IMAX theater now. We have an IMAX theater about 25 to 30 minutes away from us. There's actually two that are roughly that amount of time away. The other one is about 30 to 45 minutes away, depending on if traffic is good or if it's not as good. Um, but we like to go to the IMAX theater because it's generally a better experience. Um, what we've found is that a regular theater, you guys are having a lot of trouble with advertising. Can we cut out the advertising, please? Like, not even just the previews. The previews are bad enough. It's the other advertising you do. Mainly the advertising you do about, hey, how about you advertise with us on a movie screen instead of on TV? You guys have been doing that for decades, I imagine. You certainly were doing it back when I was a kid in the 90s and the 2000s. And I remember those ads being a lot less, shall we say, pervasive, I guess. So the showtime last night was supposed to start at 9:30. And I don't think Regal actually did the previews, like the movie previews, until 9:45, if I remember correctly. So that is 15 minutes almost of generalized advertising pertaining to your theater before you do the 10 to 15 minutes of movie previews. Why would I want to sit through that? Really? Like, oh my god. I was irritated. I was very irritated with Regal, and when we got home, which was about 12:15ish, I think, um, my mom said that one of the times that she and my brother went to see a movie recently in the last several months or so, because she doesn't go out to the movies a lot, um, they had a similar experience. And we have an AMC theater that's about 25 to 30 minutes away. It's actually in the same general area as the IMAX theater we go to. Um, and the last couple of times I've been there for a movie, same thing. Like, what's with all the general advertising pertaining to your theater? I like I'm not there to watch as many as maybe 10 to 20 different advertisements all doing the same thing, which is trying to convince me as a viewer to put up an advertisement at your theater in front of a movie. I just There's no need for that. It's excessive. And especially when you're already obligated to do 10 to 15 minutes of movie previews before the movie. So, yeah, there might be a reason why people are not going to the movie theaters as much. Now, obviously, that's in addition to the fact that with streaming and with the COVID-19 pandemic kind of making a lot of people have to watch movies at home because the theaters were not open for a while. And even when they were finally reopened, it was a very weird, limited thing for some people. And you had all these restrictions, and it was just different. So that made a lot of people decide that they didn't necessarily want to have to travel to a theater anymore and pay, $15 a ticket if you were an adult when you could just pay roughly 20 to 30 bucks to rent a movie from your cable provider or to watch it on streaming um if you're paying a monthly or annual subscription, and you can have as many people as you want in the room. You can make your own snacks, have your own drinks, and it's a much more cost-effective way to do it. Even if you're not getting the same overall experience, which is arguably better in terms of viewing when it's on a movie theater screen, the rest of the experience makes up for that. So, I think that if you go back to the way it used to be, where there were obviously, again, advertisements before the movie, as part of the movie preview section, but if you just limit it to maybe 5 minutes tops, I think you'll find, as a theater, that you will get more people to want to come out to the theater more because they're not paying 15 to 20 bucks a ticket or whatever the price is in your general area to sit through 30 minutes of not just movie previews, but movie theater advertising. Oh, have your next corporate meeting with us. Have your presentation on the big screen. And hey, by the way, watch a movie too. Have a birthday party with us. Put your business advertising on the movie screen because you have a captive audience. Do you know how many people actually own their own businesses right now? Still not enough to make that worth spending 15 to 30 minutes on right now. Mm-mm. More people have businesses, um, but they're not always going to be the kinds of businesses that would require that kind of advertising because a lot of it is online and they can just do advertising on social media or YouTube. Just saying. Anyway, that's my little, nearly 10-minute long tangent on that. Um, as to the movie, I really enjoyed it. I think that it could help to bring more people back to the MCU, but it's a bit of a long shot. I think that is going to be more for Avengers when that comes out in December, the new Avengers movie, which, by the way, does have a new special look trailer at the movie's villain, Victor Von Doom, aka Doctor Doom. I highly recommend it. I did watch it this morning. It's very good. Um, so just check that out when you get a chance. Premiered yesterday, I guess, at the D23 Expo, first day. Anyway, as always, Tom Holland was great. Um, Zendaya was good. Um, Pretty much, I don't really think there were that many performances that I thought were bad, actually. I don't think any really were. The guy who played the villain, I think his character's name was Metzger or something like that. There were times when I felt like his performance was a little bit not bad. He was pretty good, but he could have been better. Um, it was just kind of one of those performances where it wasn't bad acting, it was just, I'd almost say borderline lazy. And I don't mean that as a criticism of him, because I've learned over the years of movie watching that oftentimes an actor's performance is driven by how they're being directed. So, despite the fact that I thought the movie was overall pretty good, um, not all directors are perfect. Like, there's no perfect directors, and they're all gonna make these small mistakes or make these choices that don't end up being as good for a film, even if the film is still good overall. So I think that the guy who played the bad guy in this movie, um, generally was decent, but I'd like to see more from him in that performance of the character. Um, I thought that the girl who played the person who was presented as the villain, who I won't necessarily say who she is, although you probably already know by now, but I won't say for those who haven't seen the movie yet. Technically, I did just give a little bit of a spoiler with who I was talking about just now, but I won't go any further than that. But the person who plays the character that's presented as the villain for most of the movie, I thought she did a very good job. Especially given the character that she's playing. Her character is gonna be a tough one for her to keep playing, I think, as she develops the character through the series. Because this character is gonna have a lot of intense storytelling. There's a lot of heavy material with this character, and I'm very curious to see how they handle it. They being the actor and the Marvel Studios people. But I'm very excited to see where they're going to go with this character. I do love this character. I loved them from previous movies that they've been in that are Marvel films. Um, and it's probably one of my favorite characters, actually. So we'll see how that goes. Um, Ned was always good, of course. I like Ned. I like Ned a lot. He's, oh, I love him so much. Um, and I thought they did a good job of reincorporating um Aunt May into the story, even though she was killed off in the previous film, which I thought was a bit unexpected, but not at the end of the day, given how they had done Peter's story up to this point, it actually makes sense that they did do that little plot point when they did. So it was interesting to see how she was reintroduced back into the story posthumously. Um, I'm trying to think of what else I could talk about. Um, it was a little bit long, actually. 2.5 hours is pretty standard these days for movies, but I felt like for this one, it could have been probably 10 or 15 minutes shorter. So that's probably one of my main criticisms. So my brother and I were talking about the whole element of how nobody remembers who Peter is as Spider-Man. Nobody remembers him. And it's an interesting story trope for him because it helps to highlight the common theme of isolation, feeling like he's alone, feeling like he has to do things alone because he's Spider-Man. And there's a lot of danger that comes to people that he cares about because of his role as Spider-Man. Um, but my brother was talking about how he was kind of disappointed by the fact that they even went in that direction in the first place at the end of the last movie. And while he acknowledged that it could have been a good story plot line for Spider-Man, especially if they'd been able to kind of develop it better on a longer term scale, I guess. At the end of the day, he felt like it was a little bit unnecessary, I think, is probably the way he was trying to get it across. So, in other words, he would have preferred that if he was going to have some kind of a story where he was going to have to experience this, um, he would have preferred that it just kind of go the way of maybe the Tobey Maguire story from the second Spider-Man movie. Um, but I think overall it was a pretty good movie. Definitely better than a lot of the MCU movies they've come out with since Avengers Endgame. I was actually talking with. I got a haircut today, and my usual hairstylist is out right now on a little bit of medical leave. Nothing serious, but she just had to have some minor surgery done. So she's still in recovery. And so I went with another stylist today. And we were talking about the MCU because he's a big fan of them. And we talked about how Avengers Endgame was kind of the last movie in the MCU that was really, really good other than the Spider-Man movies. That Spider-Man is the only character who's had good movies and they've been financially successful. All the other movies have generally been financially successful for the most part until more recently. And the fan base definitely seems to be dropping off. And some of the speculation is that you could tie that to Robert Downey Jr. That when he was no longer part of the MCU, that's when the fan base kind of checked out. They gave it a try after a couple movies, and when they finally reached a point where they were like, it's not the same without him, then maybe that's when people started dropping off. And especially when you kind of wrapped up your big overarching storyline, and everybody was like, well, now what do you do? How do you top that? So obviously they tried to go in the direction of the multiverse, and Jonathan Majors was supposed to play iconic villain Kane, and I was really excited for that. I actually thought that Jonathan Majors was going to be really good for the MCU. I loved him in Loki. I only saw the first season, haven't watched the second season, but I did see him in the first season, and I saw him in Ant-Man, the third Ant-Man movie, and I thought he was really good. I was really excited to see where they were going to take him. And then he had to go and get in trouble. Had to get himself in so much trouble. Why? Why? So now they've had to pivot, and instead of trying to create this kind of overarching story, it seems like they're kind of going for more of a quick, short term, major storyline with Robert Downey Jr. as Victor Von Doom, aka Doctor Doom. And I think Marvel understood that because part of what made people come to the movies was in fact Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, but because they killed him off, they knew they couldn't do that part. So now what do you do? Well, it turned out they had a pretty decent strategy. Go to a character who's similar in terms of intelligence and impact on the characters around them, but is on the other side of the coin. And that's Victor Von Doom. So I am excited for that. I'm very curious to see how Robert handles this character, because he's a very capable actor, as he proved, especially with Tony Stark. He's obviously had a long career before then, and he's had a very prolific career. But I haven't seen very much of him previously to the Marvel movies. Um, So hopefully this Avengers movie will be what brings people back to the MCU, primarily because the MCU people, the Marvel Studios people, find their footing again. Um, but we'll see because it'll depend on how they choose to handle this story that they're doing in the next Avengers movie. And now my brother just heard that for the X-Men movie that's coming out next year, I think. they've now announced the villain for that movie, which is, I think his name is Mr. Sinister or Dr. Sinister, one of those two. Mr. Sinister, I think. Um, and based on that character's history in the comics, he sounds like he's going to be quite possibly the next Thanos, in that he's going to have this multi-movie story arc. So we'll see. And that may be more of what brings people back, is not just Avengers, but the prospect of an X-Men movie, especially if the cast they have proves to be successful. Um, so yeah. So that's my thoughts on Spider-Man, the new Spider-Man movie, Brand New Day, as well as a little bit of a thought on the state of the MCU currently and the possible prospects for the future. I might explore this a little bit more in another movie, or excuse me, another video. Sorry, that's how tired I am. I can't stay up till 1 a.m. anymore at 35 years old. So yeah, hopefully things will get better with that. I do want to try and watch some of the other show stuff that they have, but I just can't get myself motivated to do it. So we'll see. So when Avengers comes out, I'm sure my brother and I will go see it, and I'll have a video for you about that. In the meantime, I'll come up with other things to do videos about, um, just to kind of be in the habit of getting comfortable in front of the camera, getting comfortable doing videos like this and posting them for people. So, um, let me know your thoughts about it if you want in the comments. And I will see you later.